Okay, here we go. Both polar ice caps are growing. I want you to consider this comment by Vandenberg to the CBC that said the territory requested assistance from the Canadian Coast Guard, who was unable to get even its largest icebreaker through the ice, Vandenberg said. Key point number one there. Second point, Zwally et al. Massive gains in Antarctic ice sheet exceeds losses. Now, you're going to see things like these icebergs are breaking up. Well, that's what they do. They calve when they grow. They break off. This happens. This is a natural process. Another point I want to make is that it's only been in 50 years of observation of Adelaide penguins. There's been 2 die-offs that have coincided with relative releases of Wolbachia. So I want you to keep that in mind. So to bring it down to what the physics and just what you see in the natural environment is, there's a software glitch that 2 Canadian statisticians figured out, that whenever they put a number into man's software, it produced the hockey stick curve, no matter what numbers were entered. So that's fraud. We got Vandenberg's comment. The Atlantic Ocean is cooling. Both polar ice caps are growing. And if you dig into the Cook et al. Study out of Calgary, you'll find that it's a mere 75 people out of 77 that answered yes, in brackets, took money, to claim that climate change is human caused. In other words, we're all to blame, right? That's 75 people behind this massive hoax. But there's a lot of money going into it. Now, this made me laugh. Sense About Science had to award a shared John Maddox Prize to somebody who was once a naturopath, became an MD, and a male scientist that used war emotions in his research. And really, Wolbachia fits with what's happening there. It's the Great Barrier Reef is a sessile animal. And then we also have turtles there. Turtles in Rain Island, like 99% are female. But on the south end of the Great Barrier Reef, we have 69% female. The further away from these Wolbachia releases, and they were carried out in cairns allegedly since 2011, although this goes back like 30 years or more, toying with it in South Asian Pacific areas. What we have are 69% females in the south end. Now, war emotions don't happen over that stretch. That's physically impossible. So I want to bring you up to speed on the mindset here. The funding's all geared towards keeping this hoax going, even in the medical literature. Now, where I was impressed was Cassie Williams. She's a marine biologist and an editor. So she knew her stuff. She kept the facts straight. There was a 40% drop in the birth rate of North Atlantic right whales that was supposedly a mystery. And that was from 2010 to 2016. Well, 2009 was the key year that this was globally released and toyed with in French Polynesia that we know of. But Ed Yong's piece in the Atlantic said it's a technology in the works 30 years. And that was in 2011, I think, that piece. So this has gone on a long time, and NASA and NOAA and all these government agencies, that there's like, now I think there's 6 governments involved in funding this. They know what's happening, and they're coming up with some pretty crazy excuses. I'm seeing studies that more than one joint a week, because, you know, they had to legalize marijuana, is now causing a 30% drop or 33% drop in sperm counts among men. 2 joints, more than 1 joint a week can do that. That's got to be bullshit. There's a lot of people who have smoked pot a lot of years. Not myself. Not myself. But I'm saying this is not going to cause these huge drops. And by that logic, it would be like 4 joints a week would cause the 60% drops we're seeing. Well, actually, if you look at the data that's in PDFs, that's behind paywalls, you'll find men in Denmark, where there's rare Culex species, have increases in their sperm counts. But it's a 60% drop everywhere else. well, not everywhere else, Western men. And I did write to Dr. Levine, and he just thanked me, and the other doctor there didn't respond. So, you know, this is disturbing news. Now, if this fits, in 2010, they did find Wolbachia in oysters. And oysters and baleen whales, these are filter feeders. So Wolbachia is in every stage of the mosquito. In the eggs, larvae, pupae, the flying mosquito. These things die eventually. The mosquitoes die. I don't know why people get, something else absorbs it. I don't know why that's lost on people. And the Eliminate Dengue, which is now called World Mosquito Program, says it's a self-sustaining system, and that 90% of the offspring are still carrying Wolbachia, you know, 10 years later or something. There's your alarm bell. It's just going to keep on going. It's maternally inherited. And then when it gets dengue and Zika into it and whatever other viruses, well, this is just like a time capsule of disease that's happening. And it's a lie that it's the nematode. It's the Wolbachia. The nematode, the worm, can live for 14 years without causing much damage. It's the Wolbachia that the worm emits that is the pathogen. Now, the reason I know this is so urgent is that even Dr. Jiggins was convinced. Every department head says you can't culture it. It has never been found in humans. Well, you know why? Because governments have made sure no one can test for it. And species identification is even missing. Look it up. So I wrote to Dr. Jiggins. I never heard back, but I wrote, you know, my piece about his first point was, you know, despite how many researchers, it could not be cultured. The bacterium cannot. This is not true. The hidden study is in 2003 that it could be. So there you go. Now, another lie you need to know about is that the Earth cannot sustain human life. This is what the former WHO director, Dr. Margaret Chan, who is Western trained, she went to UWO in London, Ontario. She claims this, and then she fat-shamed people in Manila, in the Philippines, in her address, but she completely ignored the studies from Dr. Ayers and Gua et al., and there's at least 6 or 7 other research teams who've proven Culex are a Zika vector. And you might think, well, what's the difference? They behave completely opposite. I mean, you're hearing daytime active. Well, that's bullshit. Daytime active 80s, even if they have it, they only represent 5% of disease-carrying mosquitoes. Culex and the one that carries malaria are night active, overnight active. So people go out for a stroll. They have no idea. They have no idea how vulnerable they are. And they look different too. They act different in water, the larvae, etc. So I want to point that out. Another thing is Wolbachia infections or rickettsiosis can mimic measles. But keep this in mind, the deadliest infections have no rash or no obvious bug bite. So this is very alarming. And Peter Hotez and all the mainstream media that can be bribed, it's legal for them to lie to you, are going on about all these anti-vaxxers. Well, if you look up the true data, the data is showing very high coverage along the west coast of the U.S., 97% covered in California, a 0.1% exemption rate in Oregon is the truth. Washington, there's like 4 pages of PDF that has 95% of kindergartners covered for measles and have all their vaccines up to date. So it's kind of amazing that the CDC projected deaths from measles in 2008. How does that happen? Do you have a ESP? So it's proven here, and then I see the Public Health Ontario put out this you know, to educate the doctors that, oh, climate change on vector-borne disease epidemiology. So climate change is worked into this whole bullshit, and they're not even mentioning H. longicornis, which is like the deadliest, between 20 and 50%, 20 to 50% case mortality. And this tick was identified in May 2017 in New Jersey. They say they don't know how it got there, right? It's a brown-legged tick. Nobody's testing for brown-legged tick. There's black-legged ticks for Lyme. Well, Lyme is bad enough. But this is a killer. This is an absolute killer. Case fatality up to 50%. And I want to show you this map. And I've been putting this up on my Twitter feed a long time. And then I found out February 13th that many newborn infant deaths in New Jersey. Any reports yet? Investigate, right? Here's the potential range. Now notice it doesn't just stay in the U.S. It's going to make its way into the Maritimes and Ontario. And look over here near Vancouver, Oregon, Washington. Look at that. Now the thing is, you got to remember, it's in every life stage of these things. And ticks can live up to 6 years and carry this shit. And whatever else they get. So I've notified everyone I can since 2016, and it's just a game of pass the buck. So I want you to get a grip. If you hear a doctor say climate change is real, they're full of shit because it's a hoax, and we have a deadly pathogen now. So don't make me come down there and discipline you with this.